So recently I had a video on the Kato NW2 and how I had some noise issues with one of them. This video isn't about that, but it's about another NW2 I purchased. Take a look at this one. The detail on this new NW2 is really remarkable and quite a bit better than the Kato version. Of course, a big part of that is because this is a Lionel O Gauge version and not an N-scale version. Look at that size difference. Anyway, let's take a look at this Lionel NW2. Okay, so here is the Lionel NW2. This is a Burlington Northern locomotive, so let's go ahead and get it unboxed. So we have our bag of extra traction tires and coupler boxes. Very nice. Get all the foam out here. And there we have it. Very, very nice. And it's pretty remarkable to take the N-scale NW2 and compare that to the O Gauge version. That's just a huge size difference, but very similar overall. This particular version of the NW2 has some differences in terms of lighting and number boards and that kind of thing, but overall basically the same locomotive in N-scale and in O scale, so definitely a very big size difference. Anyway, you can see this Lionel NW2 does have a lot of great detail, and it is always one of the nice advantages of an O-scale locomotive. The nice thing about these shorter locomotives in O Gauge is that they do have body-mounted couplers. I will be replacing these with KD couplers here eventually, but for now I will leave these on here and we can do a couple little test runs with the included couplers. But anyway, this is just a really nice locomotive. For comparison, here is the Lionel SW1 on the right and the NW2 on the left. Obviously a somewhat bigger locomotive in terms of the body, but the actual length of the locomotive is pretty similar. If you look from the top down, you can see the actual length of the locomotive is basically identical with the two, so I won't have any issues on my O Gauge switching layout that I'll be building here shortly with using either of these locomotives, since the actual full length of each is exactly the same, and a little bit longer than the N-scale one. Here on the underside you can see you do have 3 pickups for the center rail and obviously the Bluetooth indicator, so this locomotive, like all current Lionel locomotives, is operable with Bluetooth. Anyway, let's get it on some tracks and do a couple little test runs. Anyway, we'll go ahead and go through some of the sound functions with the camera pointed in the right direction again. We have the horn, bell, coupler, again, a nice thing about O-scale is you can go really slow in terms of scale speed and it's still actually moving along at a reasonable pace. You can see the smoke function here. Now overall, this is a really nice O Gauge locomotive for small layouts. It's rated for 031 curves. Again, my switching layout is going to have 045, I think, just in one spot, but mostly just straight track. So it should be a really great performer for that layout. I like it a little bit better than the SW1, just because it does have the appearance of a little bit larger size, The SW1 has larger platforms on each side, so even though it's the same physical length, the actual main body of the locomotive is a little bit bigger in the NW2, and so that's nice. Again, I'm excited to start this O gauge switching layout because physically moving cars around in a larger scale is just a little bit more fun. You're not having to worry about knocking cars off the track when you're trying to couple and uncouple. Again, I do plan to put these KD couplers on this NW2 as well, so that will provide operations that are basically similar to what you do in N scale and HO scale in terms of being able to couple and uncouple cars very easily. They're obviously a lot closer to scale, and so just look better as well. And while I am doing 3-rail O scale for this layout instead of 2-rail, I want everything to be to scale. I'm just doing 3-rail because there is so much more equipment available in 3-rail than there is 2-rail. I don't want to try to do conversions or anything like that. I want to be able to just get off-the-shelf locomotives and try them out and that kind of thing. And there's just a lot more out there, and so I thought it'd be a lot more fun. And while obviously the track isn't as realistic with 3 rails, it doesn't really bother me that much. You know, I'm more interested in the operations and just the overall scenery and structures and everything. And speaking of which, I do have my first O-scale structure kit from ITLA Models, and so I'll be working on building this pretty soon as well, before maybe I even get going on building the layout, just to kind of get moving on something for that project. But anyway, yeah, great O-scale locomotive. Really excited for this one. It should be a lot of fun to use on the upcoming layout. But anyway, that's all for now, and thanks for watching. Bye.